action.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate the invite for being here. I don't think I actually need any of this, but just in case. All right, I'm Kari Lamont. I work at McCormick. I've been there about 5 years. I am an engineer, and you in particular have brought back horrible memories for me because I don't think I was a very good engineer in medical devices. And now I work at a spice flavor company. And been there, like I said, about 5 years. Got hired in to be a project manager. And in that time, my heart's not really in project management, my heart's in process. So in that time, I've taken a group and started our process improvement program in a corporate function. I'm in financial shared services. I know that sounds sexy. So I'm an engineer, and I play with finance people, and I run a lot of their people programs. That sounds like a recipe for disaster, but it seems to work. And keeps me gainfully employed and, here in the evening, so I guess that's a good thing. Sarge asked me to start off by telling you kind of what did it look like before we had process improvement. And I shouldn't say that they didn't have process improvement, because that's a flat-out lie. They have a very traditional model. Our company's older than your company. I don't know by how many years to quote it, but it's more than 100 years old. And, we've got very traditional kind of culture, a very consensus-based culture. It's slow to change. We play in your 88%, give or take, I would say. So before our process improvement program, I would consider everything sort of traditional. Traditional problems, traditional problem solving, right? So everybody's working, no problem. If it's not broken, don't try to fix it. There's no time to think about improvement. We're sustaining, we're doing what we need to do. That's the way we've always done it. These are some of my personal favorites. We tried that 5 years ago. You just don't understand. You haven't been here long enough to wait through the cycle. We'll get there again, and it won't work now either. Let's add an audit or a metric to monitor. It's one of my personal favorites. Again, we're in finance. And let's form a long-term project team to evaluate, which is beneficial when you come in as a project manager. So that's kind of nice. The stability is there. In a sense, you can think about it as the Band-Aids are around and we use them and we apply them. So that's, maybe a little harsh, but that's a traditional model of find a problem, try to fix it, move on until the problem surfaces again, and then we go again. So there's got to be another way, right? That's where the Kaizen Blitz, not a breakfast cereal, or material of any sort, comes in. So let's call it another approach. So I'm not sure if this group is familiar with Blitzes or not, but I'm going to venture to say that a little bit of everything. In my head, all this is a facilitated approach to solving a problem. It's as simple as that. Let's not make it any more complicated, but it's 3 key parts. There's the planning part. What's the problem you're trying to solve? And if you already have the solution, you don't really need this process. You may need some political finagling and that sort of thing, but if you already know what the problem is that you're trying to solve, this probably isn't going to be the approach that's going to work for you. So what is it that we're trying to solve? Are we trying to solve the right problem? So the first thing that we do is we get together a charter. You need paperwork, but we love paperwork and that's okay. So what is that charter? What does it look like? What's the scope that we're looking at? What's the very first step in the process? What's the very last step in the process? Can you at least kind of quantify what it is that you're looking at, that you want to get together? Who do you think you need in the room to work that through? If you don't get the right people in the room, you're probably not going to get the right answers as a course of it. So what is it that you're going after? Who do you need there? And then let's schedule it. Let's get some good time in a space, lock the doors, and let's see what happens. That's the planning element. So right people, right process, facilitator, put them in a mix and see what happens. Oh, and a lot of Post-it notes, and I'm not all that technologically enabled, so Sharpies, tape. Then we go into implementing. So we've arrived. Everybody agreed to the charter. We got all our stakeholder blessing and all that good stuff. We get there. We map from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 until step 400 if it takes it. What exactly is going on in this process? And you break it down into simple steps that everyone can understand. And you have a facilitator in the room so that when the person gives you step 1 to 37 in one sentence, you go, wait, can I just ask a few questions? Can you help me understand how you got from 1 to 2 and what exactly happened in between? And it's amazing what happens. The dynamic in the room changes and everyone stops and goes, No, that's not what happens. This is what really happens. And you may think that that's the process, or that's what's documented, or that's what we tell the auditors, because we have these 16 audits, but this is what's really going on. And this incredible dynamic comes through the room where everybody starts telling you the real story, and you document it. Step 1 to step 2 to step 347. And all along the way, you've empowered everyone in the room with maybe a different color of sticky note or something else to write down what they're thinking. Identify what pain points are coming in. Identify what variation they're seeing. Identify what's not quite working. Or, hey, did we ever try this? Or when we tried that 5 years ago, this is why it didn't work, but let's give it a whirl and put it on a Post-it note. Because the Post-it note's not a scary thing. It's just one little voice on a Post-it note. So we go with it, and everybody's got an equal playing field. So we collect all of those as we go through our mapping process. We use that map as a problem-solving tool. It's a gigantic, movable problem-solving tool, and that's all it is. So we move things around, and we get a very dynamic look at this big process that started off as maybe a procedure or just started off in somebody's head as this is the process with some sort of problem that maybe we knew about and maybe we found 15 more, but that's okay. We use that. We use a bunch of different techniques to try to understand the problems that we've got and how we prioritize and how we start solving these problems. We use a lot of groupthink to further ideate around these specific ideas. It becomes very visual, and the map starts to talk to you, which either makes you sound really brilliant or like a crazy person, I'm not sure. But the map starts to tell you something, that there's a concentration of issues, or there's maybe an opportunity, or there's something that's not quite right. When you see a map that goes from here to here to here to here to here, and those are swim lanes, and you see all these functions trying to talk to each other, oh, it makes your skin crawl a little bit. And you think, wow, there's got to be a better way to do that. How do we kind of get that worked out? And I have a picture in here that you'll probably laugh at. So you take all of your great recommendations, you kind of funnel those down into some solutions, and you present them to stakeholders because you don't want to get too far out of the mark before you get a little bit of buy-in to say, well, yeah, okay, there's something there, let's go with that, and we think we can solve this, and we, by the way, only really invested a day or some time to think through it. So you try to implement those wherever you can. Again, we work in a fairly regulated environment. Many times we are so happy to walk out with a good solid plan, but we've got a plan. We've got a documented plan. We've got resources, and the best of all, we've got buy-in. Because we've sat together, we've developed it together, we've presented to our stakeholders together, we've watched the body language all together, so now we've arrived in a day or 2 days, but we've done it. So the last stage is the follow-up. So now let's get it done. Check off all the lists, own it, see it through to completion, check in on it. Maybe you didn't get it right the first time. Probably didn't, but maybe did you get it 80%? Is it better than it was when you walked in, better than it was when you wrote the charter? So it's kind of it can be an iterative cycle where at least you've gotten it a little bit better, and without a huge investment, you get it a little bit better the next time and the next time still. Okay, so the charter that I talked about, this is, the document. Try to keep this to a page, maybe two. You don't like to cause waves if people really want to stretch it out, but it's just what I talked about. What's the purpose or the background? Why are we even engaging in this effort? Do we know? Can we explain it to people? Can we explain it in a way that makes people aware that there is an issue, or a misunderstanding, or something that could just use some clarity? Where are we starting? Where are we ending? What are we trying to get out of it? Do we want to make solid improvements? Are we looking for cost gains, for productivity gains? Are we looking to understand our communication cycles through things? But what is it that we're looking to get out of it? Key point in here is a follow-up owner. So who's going to carry this thing forward? And this was a major lesson learned for me coming into the company that I came into was, boy, I better have an owner, because I came from manufacturing where I'd go out and move the plan around and validate it and do all the right things, but I'd be done. At the end of the Blitz, I was done, and that was the end of it, and everybody went back to work in their new system because we had done all the training and everything was all complete. Well, in the office, I had to tweak that model because it wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to change overnight. I had to work through all the psychology of the change and all the rest of it, and all the stakeholdership. So now I need an owner because I can't own all of these. I don't own the processes to start with. So they need the owner to keep carrying it forward. So now I won't take on the blitz until I have the owner, so make sure that there's some continuity there. Team members, I talked about, how do you know you've got the right people? The stakeholders go along with the team members. It's usually a level up to make sure that you've got dedicated resources, the right voices to do the approvals, and make sure you've got the support to move it forward. And then the facilitator, arguably the most important person in the room, it's probably really the owner, but the facilitator is the person who stands back and asks the dumb questions, like why? And what happens next? And how do you do it? And what are you thinking? And boy, you're awfully quiet there. Is there something that's on your mind? And wow, that's a really interesting opinion. Do you think anyone else has an opinion? So,
well, let's put that in the parking lot.
Yeah, let's put that in the parking lot. Or, you know, could you help me write that on the parking lot? And what do you all think while he's doing that? Yeah, you're on to our tricks. Right, and sometimes there's some pre-work. So depending on what you're looking at, what is it that you've got that you can bring in here? This is not typically bring in all of your written procedures. We don't typically need them, right? The procedures of people that are the things you're actually doing, you know what you're doing or not doing, so you kind of just come in with your knowledge. So that's sort of a sample charter. So that's the planning step. Here's a sample map. So protect the innocent. I've blurred them out, but here's on the map. So the pink was our process step. So I had to laugh a little bit at your slides that had notes and they were not organized, which I'm sure that was for a purpose, but you know, the engineer kicks in a little bit, and so like these are linear, right? So you can follow the pinks, and you can see that the pinks are going along, and then they jump down into a different swim lane. So someone else is doing that function, or a different function now owns the process. And then they kind of go, and you see there's some steps in parallel, and then they kind of jump back. And the blue, well, this is what everybody's been writing down. And the real vocal, the extroverts in the room are shouting them out, and then the introverts are, you know, validating or whatever, writing them all down. But you get everything up there. And this is pretty typical that you'll have just as many pain points as you'll have process steps, if not more. And this takes, depending how long your process, 2 hours, 4 hours, something like that. And it always starts off as a brown paper, and I'm not originally from Baltimore, so everybody always gets excited. They think crabs are coming in, it's going to be a good time, and then you put the paper on the wall, and they get very confused. But it turns into this really neat tool that doesn't require much investment, except your mind, and sort of a little bit of risk of creativity to put an idea up there. And you can see just from the map, is it talking to you? Can you see where the concentration of issues might be? You know? There's a bunch of stuff going on in the middle. There's this process in here that's like it's surrounding the pinks, and people always put them in a way to tell you something. People really want to see something, they put it on an angle, right? Things will get stacked up on top of each other. We try to cluster like ideas on top of each other. We try to cluster like ideas. So you work with this, and everybody's been in part of it because everybody has that equal voice. So how have we used this? Probably facilitated, oh gosh, I don't know. Probably close to 100 blitzes now at McCormick, and probably 30 or 40 at a previous company, because manufacturing, so you did bigger things, which you did them less often. So within McCormick, specifically within this finance world, and beyond, because we get tapped into to borrow resources. So everything from competitive action, so how we're going to market and what we can offer to customers and what we can't offer customers. Internal orders, so that's our capital process. Our capital forecasting, our data workflows, budget, speed to market, pricing, short-term disability, I mean, you name it. A process is a process, right? Step 1 to step 2 to step 3. Break it down into process steps and you can blitz it. Sometimes the problem statement is, I don't know what's wrong with this process, but there's got to be a better way to do it. So we're going to start here, and we're going to end there, and let's see what we find. And if everyone goes into it with that mentality, it's amazing what you'll find. Some of the results, and these are sort of generic, again, to protect the innocent, but we've come by a lot of time savings. We do measure hours saved, and if you think about that, that's capacity that you can redeploy someplace else, or that you can eventually work out of the organization, but it's people doing things that they don't need to be doing. So that's time. The positive spin on that is know all the things you never get to do but you want to do. This is how you find it. elimination of redundancies, clarification of roles and responsibilities. So McCormick is very, what's the expression, long in the tooth in terms of the employee basis. So you've got folks, I've been there 5 years and I'm still considered an embryo on the stage of maturity for employees. And that's a great thing. There's a huge amount of institutional knowledge that can be gained there. But the amount of times that I walk into a room as a facilitator and I say, okay, we're going to get going and this is the process and da-da-da-da, let's do some quick introductions, a little bit about who you are. Oh, I'm so-and-so, I'm so-and-so. Oh, you're so-and-so? Yeah, I've been talking to you for 20 years. Never knew your face. Never knew who you were. So just creating that environment that everybody connects around a common purpose, there's tremendous value in that. So now tack on, we're going to talk about our process. Well, there's roles and responsibilities that you can clear up, and we've got a bunch of other tools for that. Simplification, standardization, the maps never look as messy as they do to begin with. They always get streamlined, if it's done right. We enhance the use of technology. Sometimes we bring our IT folks in the room because they hear the problems in a different way, and they see it presented to them in a different way, that if they can get them in line and hear it all right up, that's much more useful for us. And then improved controls, because we're making the processes more reliable and repeatable so we can feel better about them. Sometimes we get to eliminate some of the metrics and take some of the audits out, which is, kind of exciting in the finance side of things. And then finally, I really didn't have 50 slides. I think I had 8. I just wanted to set your expectations. So some lessons learned or some keys to success. So some of these were real obvious to begin with, and some of them we learned the hard way. The ownership that I mentioned. If we don't have an owner, we can't move forward, because who's going to carry it through? The stakeholder support, again, who's going to keep it going? And how do you make sure that they even sponsor us even looking at this to begin with? So we do a lot of planning up front. That's the most time intensive. The no blame environment, this isn't about finding out who did what wrong or why it's broken, but just how we're going to fix it. So it's very future focused. And that's why you really need the good facilitator to make sure it stays in the future, and not so much Sally's a moron so we can't move forward and I can't get anything done because of this and that and the other. And that's just some creative people dynamic handling. Establishment of clear objectives, clear scope, the objective facilitation, the flexibility. Most times we get in there and we say, okay, we're going to start at this part of the process, and somebody goes, that's not really the start. Okay. Tell me a little bit about that, and we'll back up. And the reason that we use everything on Post-it notes is because you can move them around. So we're very flexible. So sometimes a technique's not going to work. We try to vote. Nobody wants to vote. We try to do this. We do that. We keep going. And then probably one of the biggest keys to success. This started off as an idea in a conference room, sitting with my leadership team, and they said, well, we need to do this. We think we're going to do a project. And I said, well, do you ever consider using the Blitz process? It's just project manager. And they said, what's that? And I explained it, and they said, give us more. Go away, give us more. So I came back, and I kind of pitched this thing, and they said, why should we do it? And I said, it's easy. That was my answer. And they said, okay. I said, well, it's going to take me a day. Will you give up that day? And they said, yes. So pick something that you know is going to be successful. Pick a process that's so horribly broken that even if you make a little bit of improvement with it, it's going to look tremendous. So pick that and keep moving it forward and keep kind of pushing the peanut up the hill, because you'll get there. We started with 1 facilitator, and now I've got 8. They're not lean certified. They're not. They might be certifiable. Wait, is that thing still running?
No.
But they're just thinking, and they're just using what they've got. They're using their natural charm and wit to get through these things, and just being objective versus really having deep process knowledge or anything of the sort. So it's kind of just applying all that and keep moving it forward. So we've been able to expand out beyond just our little world of finance, and we're getting bigger and bigger, and it's more now about, can you help us solve this problem, and less about bring us this specific tool or this specific tool. It's, okay, we know we can at least come and talk. And we start there. That's all. That's all I've got.